March 30th, 1981. The President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, steps out of the Washington Hilton, waving and smiling with his signature Hollywood grin, surrounded by a protective blanket of agents in dark suits. Then,
Mr. President!
six shots, rapid and deafening. Secret Service agents react instantly, swarming, shoving, and shielding the president in a moment's notice. Reagan is pushed into his limousine, pale, gasping, unaware that one bullet has ricocheted off the presidential limo and lodged deep into his chest. As the motorcade screams toward George Washington University Hospital, another man is left behind in the chaos. Reagan's a military aide, Lieutenant Colonel Jose Marati, and he's carrying the nuclear football, officially known as the Presidential Emergency Satchel. The 45-pound sturdy aluminum-framed briefcase encased in black leather containing the launch codes for the United States nuclear arsenal. There's even a disturbing video tape from that day showing Marati frantically running toward the motorcade as Reagan is pushed into his limousine. Inside the ER, doctors cut through Reagan's clothes to find the wound. Amid the torn fabric, something small and plastic falls to the floor, unnoticed, unmarked. It's a 3x5 card known as the biscuit, and it contains the president's personal authentication codes, the keys to America's nuclear arsenal, and it's now lying beneath the operating table, splattered with blood. For several critical minutes, the commander-in-chief is unconscious. The football is missing, and the codes to launch a nuclear war sit unsecured on a hospital floor, tattered with bloodstains. And somewhere, a young military aide, still separated from his president, is desperately trying to rejoin the motorcade, clutching the most dangerous briefcase in the world. And for a brief, terrifying moment, the chain of nuclear command, the system that meant to safeguard humanity from destruction, broke. Welcome to Threat Level Red. I'm your host, Charles Denyer, and this is episode 11, The Nuclear Football, the presidential briefcase that could end humanity.
Welcome to Threat Level Red, a Charles Denyer Productions podcast. Every week, Charles brings his real-world expertise to the front lines of America's most pressing threats: cyber attacks, extremist networks, rogue states, terrorism, economic instability, systemic breakdowns, and so much more. From the digital battleground to the streets of America, no threat is left uncovered. No spin, no filters, just intel.
It began in the uneasy calm of the 1950s, when the atomic bomb wasn't just a weapon, but a political instrument of fear. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a former general who had witnessed the destruction of World War II firsthand, understood one chilling truth. If the United States were ever attacked, the president might have only minutes to respond. Those minutes would determine not just victory or defeat, but survival or annihilation. Eisenhower's aides conceived the first emergency satchel, a portable command system that would ensure continuity of government and the ability to launch a nuclear response even if Washington, D.C. was destroyed. Officially, it was called the Presidential Emergency Satchel, as briefly noted. But among insiders, it quickly became known simply as the Black Bag. By the early 1960s, President John F. Kennedy faced a nuclear command system still largely improvised. During the Berlin and Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy discovered something terrifying. There was no clearly defined way for him to authorize or control a nuclear strike if he was away from the Situation Room. That vulnerability inspired his aides, including General Chester Clifton, to formalize the process, creating a portable kit that contained nuclear strike options, communication codes, and authentication materials. Jokingly, aides called it the football, perhaps from Kennedy's own love of touch football on the White House lawn. Wherever the name's origin, which isn't clear, its meaning was unmistakable. This was the most dangerous playbook on Earth. From that very moment forward, the football became a permanent part of the presidency, a silent, leather-clad shadow that never strays from the commander-in-chief. To the untrained eye, it looks like a briefcase, unmarked, weighing around 45 pounds. Its exterior ordinary enough to blend in anywhere, but inside the nuclear football lies the machinery of Armageddon. So, what's inside this briefcase, you might be asking? Well, that's classified, but here's what I do know and what I can tell you. There are 4 things in the football. The first, the Black Book. a loose leaf binder outlining nuclear retaliatory options under the Single Integrated Operation Plan, or SIOP. Second, another black book listing classified site locations for evacuation and command continuity. Third, a small folder detailing the procedures for the emergency broadcast system, allowing the president to address the nation even as missiles arc across the sky. And fourth, a 3x5 card containing the daily authentication codes known as the biscuit, which verifies that the person giving launch orders truly is the President of the United States. Contrary to popular myth, there's no red button inside, no cinematic switch that starts World War III. The football is a communication and verification hub, not a control panel, and that's something important to note. When open, it connects the president, wherever he is, to the National Military Command Center. The process is methodical: authentication through challenge codes, consultation with military advisors, and transmission of launch orders to Strategic Command. The chain of command runs with lethal efficiency, from the president to the Secretary of Defense to the combatant commanders. It is power distilled to its purest, most terrifying form. But there's also another briefcase, another football. Somewhere in the shadows behind the Vice President of the United States walks a quiet sentinel, a uniformed military aide carrying a black leather briefcase identical to the one that follows the president. It's called the backup nuclear football, a mirror image of the original, built for one reason only: to ensure that if the president is killed, cut off, or incapacitated, America's ability to launch or defend with nuclear weapons does not vanish with them. This practice began in the late 1970s, when Cold War planners realized that a single briefcase wasn't enough to guarantee continuity of command. Since then, the Vice President of the United States has always had a football of their own, complete with the same strike options, communication links, and emergency procedures as the President's version. It's an eerie redundancy, a shadow authority that springs to life only in the most catastrophic circumstances. Everywhere the President and the Vice President goes, the military aide is there, always within reach, eyes scanning, with the briefcase never more than a few steps away. Luckily, for most of American history in recent times, this briefcase has remained closed, silent, untouched, but it stands as a haunting symbol of what might happen if the unthinkable occurs, that somewhere on a tarmac or in a bunker, the president or vice president could open that case and inherit the power to decide the fate of the world. And though the nuclear football has never been used, it has had some scary moments. As discussed in the opening segment, on March 30th, 1981, President Ronald Reagan was shot outside the Hilton Hotel. Amid the chaos, the Secret Service rushed him to George Washington University Hospital, where, in the trauma bay, doctors cut Reagan's clothing and again out-tumbled the biscuit, lying unnoticed on the floor. But that's only part of the story. In the confusion that followed, the FBI ultimately came into possession of the biscuit as part of its evidence gathering after the shooting. And why did that happen? Well, that's because somebody picked it up off the blood-stained floor during Reagan's surgery and put it into his shoe. Shortly thereafter, a tense dispute erupted between the FBI and the president's military aides over who should retain custody of the card. The standoff lasted for 2 long, agonizing days until Attorney General William French Smith ordered the FBI to keep it in their possession. During this period, a new biscuit with updated codes was quietly issued to President Reagan. Following Reagan's recovery, a disturbing revelation emerged. The Joint Chiefs of Staff possessed a duplicate authentication card, completely unknown to the president, thus raising serious questions about transparency and the clarity of the chain of command. After leaving office, Ronald Reagan invited Jerry Parr to a quiet lunch at his Bel Air home in Los Angeles. If you remember, Parr is the Secret Service agent who saved Reagan's life during the 1981 assassination attempt. There, they recalled the chaos outside the Washington Hilton, the gunfire, the rush to the limo, and Parr's split-second decision to divert to George Washington University, a move that saved the president's life. Then Reagan paused, smiled, and said, "Jerry, when I drifted off into surgery that day, I remember thinking to myself, where the hell are my launch codes?" It was pure Ronald Reagan, dry humor masking the weight of history. Even on the edge of consciousness, the president was thinking about the nuclear biscuit, the small card with America's launch codes, lost somewhere amid the chaos of that harrowing day. But Reagan's incident was not the only close call. Lieutenant Colonel Buzz Patterson, a former military aide to President Clinton, revealed that in early 1998, shortly after the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke,
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
President Bill Clinton had misplaced the nuclear authentication codes known as the biscuit. Patterson told me that when the time came for the routine security check, Clinton could not remember where he had placed the card. A frantic search ensued throughout the White House before the president admitted he had likely lost it. The missing codes went unnoticed for several months, an extraordinary breach in nuclear security, until the situation quietly resolved itself with the issuance of new codes. And how about Jimmy Carter, who once reportedly sent his authentication code to the dry cleaner inside the pocket of a suit? The card was reportedly discovered missing during a routine check, prompting the immediate issuance of new codes. Every near miss reveals the uncomfortable truth. The most catastrophic weapons ever devised depends not on systems, but on humans. The football's very existence is a reminder that even the tightest security chain can come undone with a single unpredictable moment. So, who should hold the power to end the world? For decades, the answer has been quite simple and terrifying. One person. The President of the United States has sole authority to order the use of nuclear weapons. Congress cannot override it. The Secretary of Defense cannot veto it. Advisors can counsel restraint, but in the end, the choice belongs to a single human being. This concentration of power has long fueled moral and constitutional debate. Critics argue it violates the spirit of America's checks and balances. Defenders say speed is essential, that in a nuclear crisis, hesitation could mean annihilation. So what is the process if the nuclear football is ever opened and has to be used? Well, the process is governed by strict two-person verification. The President of the United States will read the authentication codes from the biscuit. The National Military Command Center will confirm them. Then, with seconds ticking, the order is relayed to missile crews under the two-man rule. Once transmitted, it cannot be undone. In recent years, even military leaders have raised quiet alarms. Yet, despite decades of controversy, the system remains intact. The football still follows the president, the embodiment of total power and total trust in one individual's judgment. The football is a constant physical reminder of mortality and responsibility. Every president reacts differently to it. As for JFK, he treated it with solemn gravity. Reagan, a believer in deterrence, saw it as a necessary evil. Obama joked that it should come with a warning label. As for Trump, he reportedly displayed casual fascination with it, even allowing a photo near the aide carrying the satchel, an image that circulated worldwide. For the public, the football is the symbol of the thin line between civilization and chaos. And in a strange way, that visibility matters. It is the paradox of modern deterrence. The more visible the instrument of annihilation, the less likely it will ever be used. And what about pop culture, which has given rise to a persistent myth that the nuclear football itself launches nuclear weapons with the push of a button? This truth is more complex and more fragile. Again, just to be clear, the satchel does not launch missiles. It initiates communication. The president reviews pre-vetted strike options ranging from limited response to all-out retaliations. The decision must be authenticated, transmitted, and executed down the chain of command. However, from start to finish, this process can unfold in less than 10 minutes. That speed is both efficiency and peril. In the Cold War, the U.S. built a launch-under-attack posture, designed to retaliate before enemy warheads struck. That logic remains embedded in today's protocols, where warning time may be as short as 25 to 30 minutes. And modern threats complicate this further. Cyber warfare, artificial intelligence, and misinformation raise new questions. What if communications are spoofed? What if satellites are blinded? What if AI-generated deepfakes mimic presidential orders? Whether theater or truth, one thing remains. This very system relies on humans interpreting imperfect information in seconds that ultimately defines centuries. The football may be an icon of control, but in reality, it's a fragile bridge between command and catastrophe. Every modern president lives with two undeniable shadows: the United States Secret Service and the aide carrying the football. At state dinners, aboard Air Force One, Marine One, in hospitals, during vacations, it's always there, discreetly in the background, a 45-pound reminder of unimaginable power. Few objects on Earth embody such concentrated authority or such moral weight. The nuclear football is more than a weapon system. It's a mirror. It reflects humanity's obsession with control, our fear of vulnerability, and our uneasy faith in leadership. It represents the paradox of deterrence, that peace can only be preserved by the threat of annihilation. And yet, for all its myth and ceremony, it's just a briefcase: leather, metal, paper, wires. It cannot think, decide, or hesitate. That responsibility, it rests with the president, and by extension, with us. Perhaps the greatest lesson of all is that power, even ultimate power, isn't measured by what it can destroy, but by what it chooses to spare. In our next episode, the 2016 DNC hack and the John Podesta phishing email that shook democracy. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Charles Denyer. This is Threat Level Red.
Threat Level Red is a Charles Denyer Productions podcast. For more information, visit charlesdenyer.com to learn more about current and upcoming podcasts and episodes, current and future book publications, professional services offered by Charles, and much more. All opinions expressed are those of the host and do not reflect the official positions of any government agency, military branch, or national security organization.